YouTube, let's talk about the biggest flaw with Master Duel and how to fix it. Let's go.
There can only be one winner, and you're looking at it. Let's go.
Back to Duel Links. Now, to be honest, I tricked you. This is not going to be about just the biggest flaw. It's the biggest flaws, more than one flaw. I'm going to identify and talk about the two biggest flaws with Master Duel and how to fix them or help alleviate the situation. Now, flaw number one, which I feel is the biggest flaw, is floodgates. What the heck is a floodgate? Let's open this up and show you what a floodgate is. A floodgate, how I would define it, is a continuous card that's on the field that demands your opponent's full attention to deal with just that card or they lose. It's not a card they could really play around. It's not a card they could ignore. And it's not a card that there's any great strategy around. They specifically need a card to deal with this card or they're going to lose, and that's what I call a floodgate. So is a card like Apollo or a Borreload Savage Dragon a floodgate? No, this is a one-time, one-turn negate. You can play around this. You can trick them to negate. But what about a card like Ultimateness? You can't really bait a negate in most situations. In most situations, this will be a floodgate where if you don't directly deal with this card, with the card like Droplet or the Master one, the Dark Ruler No More, then you're going to lose. And that's what I consider a floodgate. You need a direct card that counters a card. You're not playing around this generally. So these are cards that are floodgates. Now, why am I complaining about this, Dkayed? Did you not play TCG? I did play TCG back in 2014. We did have floodgates similar to some of these cards, but in TCG, OCG, it's a best of 3 format with a side deck. Floodgates are okay when you could side deck in your 3 Dark Ruler No Mores, your 3 Droplets to deal with the Herald of Ultimateness, and then your opponent's going to have to adjust around knowing that you're siding in all the anti-floodgate cards. But this is a best of 1 game. Best of 1, whether you like it or not, if that's the direction of the game, which I believe it is, then Konami needs to balance the game around best of 1. The ban list we have right now is essentially a replicate of an older OCG ban list. I think the first ban list we get for this game, it's going to be big. In the Exceed event, they banned cards like Dragon Buster, Destruction Sword, which means it is on their radar. This preventing your opponent from using the extra deck, Imperial Order negating all spells. We have cards like Rongo preventing you from summoning. Crooked Cook is indestructible when you set it up correctly. True King is kind of a semi-floodgate. In many circumstances, your opponent can't do anything for 2 turns against this card. Now, what am I proposing? I'm not saying to ban all these cards, but a card like Skill Drain, this card should be at 1 or banned. It should not be at 3, because a popular card that does deal with Skill Drain that most decks should have access to is going to be, by the popularity cards, a card like Access Code Talker. You can make an access code talker. It's going to require a massive extension. You're going to need 4 monsters to then banish itself to take out the skill drain. Then, woo, you're done, right? Wrong. They have another skill drain. That's ridiculous. That's not okay. So this should at least be at 1 or banned. So if I overcommit into an access code talker that you somehow can't stop, that I get rewarded for taking out your skill drain. I think floodgates are okay only if the most popular viable strategies generally have a good out to them. Otherwise, these cards, a lot of them should be limited to 1 or banned. Now, the barrier statue to a lesser extent preventing you from special summoning, it essentially just steals your battle phase. So I think a card like this is much better, where you just enter battle phase, attack over it. If it had 2,000 defense, then I think it would be a much bigger problem. So that is what I think they should do with the first ban list, is have a serious look at these cards and either ban or limit, or for a card like Herald of Ultimateness, reduce the strategy of giving them so many cards in the hand. This only becomes a floodgate when they have a full freaking hand. What's giving them a full hand? Cards like Ben 10, cards like the Ava. So if they were to restrict those cards, then Ultimateness no longer becomes a floodgate with nearly unlimited resources to negate everything you do. Now, that was just the first biggest flaw with Master Duel that I do think Konami will address and hopefully fix by balancing the game around best of one and not requiring you to have a specific out to a certain card. The game's all about interaction with your opponent. These are all anti-interaction. The least interaction you have in the game, the less fun you're going to be having, and that's all I'm promoting. I want fun interaction with the opponent. Now, the other biggest flaw of the game is going to be exemplified in this duel. The very long turns. It's ridiculous. That is something that I believe is top 2 or maybe the #1 problem with this game is a very long turn where you can't interact with your opponent. You have to forever sit there. You have to AFK, go to the bathroom if you don't have any hand traps. Now, what could fix this? This duel is actually both problems in one. It's not only a very long turn 1, it also ends with a floodgate. And that's not fun. Anti-interaction, a long time you're doing nothing. Is that just how Yu-Gi-Oh is? Well, I feel that the more modern decks like Tri-Brigade is a deck that within 10 actions or less, they set up their fields. It's okay to have multiple negates in the fields like Apollo and Disruption with the Ancient Warrior's Oath and being able to summon a Charade on your turn. I'm okay with that. Build up your castle, and then let me invade it. That's what this game's all about. It's about tower defense, essentially. They are the Dungeons and Dragons master. They're building up a castle, and then you get to invade it. That's fine. Just, I don't want to watch you build your castle for 10 minutes. That's the problem. Taking forever to build your castle is not okay. So that's why a modern deck like Zodiac Tri-Brigade, which is pretty much the best deck in the game but not complained about, is because they quickly build their castle and they don't really have floodgates. So this is a healthy top tier, tier 1 deck. At Emancipator, this is not healthy because it takes forever to set up. This is on ×2 speed, by the way, and then they're going to end on a floodgate, one of the floodgates being the Buster Whelp. Now, how do we fix this issue? Is this fixable? Is this just the problem with the game? Here you go, the floodgate, the Buster Dragon Whelp. He even had Maxi and Ash Blossom, which he was able to counter, so he did get to have some interaction, but if he didn't have those cards, then this would have been even more bonkers. And one of the solutions to this is, unfortunately, decks like this should probably not be top tier. If you have a very long turn 1, then I don't think you deserve to be on the tier list. I do think you deserve to be rogue tier. You do deserve to be good. You do deserve to get Plat 1, highest rank, even qualify for Worlds with your deck. But you should not be a prominent top tier deck if you take forever to set up your turn 1, because then the whole game is going to turn into very slow turns. A deck that has a very slow turn 1 that's not top tier would be Spiral. I love Spiral. I learned Spiral. It's like 50 actions, 50 summons and or actions to set up their turn, and that's okay if I'm a rogue deck, but honestly, when I'm playing this deck, I feel really bad for my opponent. I feel so bad that I'm extra speeding up my plays. I'm not taking my time. I'm trying my fastest to discard, special, link, summon, because I don't want my opponent to be griefed. I don't want to grief my opponent by taking forever. So with this deck being a rogue tier deck, not being top tier, and not being seen as much, I think that makes it okay. It's kind of like Exodia. We know Exodia is going to have the longest turn 1, right? They either draw into Exodia or they don't. But this not being a top tier deck makes it okay. If Exodia was tier 2, it would be a definitive problem. Now, my more practical change, besides balancing the game around ensuring very long turn 1s are not the most prominent top tier decks, is going to be, I think that if you're going second, you should have 6 cards in your hand. Hold up. Whoa, you're changing everything. No, calm down. Konami changed turn 1. You used to draw for your turn. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Where both players draw 5, then to start the duel, you draw 1 for your turn, so turn 1 player draws into 6 cards. I'm saying to implement that same change for turn 2. The turn 2 player, instead of opening up with 5 cards, I think they should open up with 6, and then just like turn 1, skip their draw phase. Do not draw for their turn. Just have 6 cards in their hand. Now, why would I recommend that change? The main reason for that recommendation is increasing your chance to be able to interact with your opponent's long turn 1 combo. A card like Ash Blossom could help interrupt them, not completely stop them, but at least stop one of their searches or summons, so you feel like you're still in the game. You could throw a little pebble while they're building up their castle before you invade it. So if we look at the math right now, with a 40-card deck, 5-card hand, if you play Ash Blossom, you have about a 33.8% chance to open up your Ash Blossom to throw that little pebble at them. If you have a 6-card opening hand but skip your draw phase, from 33% chance, you now have pretty much a 40% chance to disrupt them. This could be Max C. This could be anything. If you have Ash Blossom and Max C, which is 6 cards total, you have a 65% chance to be able to interact with your opponent's very long turn 1 turn. Right now, instead of 65% chance where you're playing 3 Max and 3 Ash Blossom, you have instead a 57% chance. So about 5 out of 10 duels, you'll be able to disrupt them. Instead, just bump it up. 6 to 7 duels out of 10, you'll be able to disrupt them during their very long turn 1. I hate the idea of if I see an Adamancipator deck and I don't have any hand traps, then I literally have to get up and go to the bathroom and go do something else. Watch an anime, talk to Gia. I want to be able to interact, and I think increasing the chance of having a turn 1 hand trap by going second, which is the same change they have for going first, where they don't draw for their turn. They had to nerf turn 1, but then turn 1 is still too powerful. And those are my 2 changes. I think those are the 2 ways to fix Master Duel, to make it more healthy, increase interaction, and both changes are about interaction. The floodgates are anti-interaction. The long turn 1s are anti-interaction. So increase the interaction by balancing the floodgates, and increase interaction by having more cards on your first turn as a turn 2 player, but do not draw for your turn. Turn 1 was too broken back when I played. They had to nerf it, and now it's too broken again. Thank you very much, fools.